Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, and I am going to place right here a special request for the Andrew Yang administration when Andrew Yang drops into the presidency on January 20th, 2021. This is specifically my request for Andrew Yang for them to execute within H2 of year one of his presidency. All right. Now, I'm putting this here because it's very important to me, and for several reasons. One, it's very important to me. I really want this. This is my request as an American to my president, to Andrew Yang. And the other reason why I'm putting it here is I don't think I would never have any hope of getting this request done with any normal politician, right? Normal politicians think in intuitive ways, right? They think in obvious ways. They think in what's going to serve my numbers, what's going to be helpful to get reelected, those kind of things, right? But one of the reasons why I like Andrew Yang as a candidate so much is he's so intelligent, and he thinks in a counterintuitive way. He understands, he looks at patterns and trends, finds patterns and trends that others miss, right? The automation storm, the upcoming automation storm. No other candidate saw this coming. No other candidate had a solution for this. No other candidate was even talking about it, right? But Andrew Yang embraces the counterintuitive. He goes to the counterintuitive. And this is a J. Scott Garibay exclusive. I am convinced that Americans will succeed individually and America will succeed as a nation when it understands the counterintuitive is where all the gold is today. All the success, all the value, all the best paths lie in the counterintuitive today, because our world is flipped upside down. There are patterns and trends that have absolutely shocked and surprised people, and doing the obvious today will not give you good results. It will end in tears and flames most of the time, right? And so the counterintuitive is important. So this is my request for Andrew Yang during his administration. Now, one of the reasons why I'm putting this here as a request for him to execute during his administration is I would love for him to campaign on this, right? But since it's counterintuitive, most people would not understand it, and it would frighten most people, right? That's another reason why I am incredibly excited about Andrew Yang, is I believe Andrew Yang will take some actions once he is president that are incredibly shocking to many Americans, right? But shocking in a good way, in that he's, he's double Ivy League. He's intelligent at a level no other politician on the debate stage is intelligent, and I believe his ability to bring shockingly effective but shockingly unusual solutions is high. And I think we're going to see some very shocking solutions when he gets into the presidency. That's a good thing, right? We need to make dramatic changes, right? UBI is dramatic, right? Without a doubt. All right. So let's roll this forward. Okay. So here's my request. I would like to see very responsive, very exact, very specific regulation of the movie industry. All right. And I'm going to give 3 examples of regulatory changes that I want the government to make, right, within the movie industry. And I'm going to give the reasons why this is a good idea, and why this is a completely reasonable request, and why this really just fixes a problem we have in government regulation today. So first and foremost, let's talk about a government regulation problem. The government absolutely does not hesitate to do incredibly specific, responsive changes in almost any industry it wishes, right? The company that makes raisins, right? The ones that, lame people give out for Halloween in the red boxes, right? That company overproduced raisins, and the government's like, you know what? You've got to take tons and tons of raisins and bury them in the ground so that they're not consumed, so that they don't go onto the marketplace. The government said, you've overproduced this crop, and it's important to the economic well-being of the populace, the American populace, that these raisins be destroyed, right? That's incredible. It's responsive, it's specific, it's exact. The government does specific industry regulations all over the place. they tell the auto industry, this is how your cars are to be made going forward, right? We want to see more of these cars and less of these cars, right? And they are incredibly involved in what alliances are used to make cars, right? The pharmacy industry, they say, this is going to be the scope of your research. You will use this method for your research. You will not use that method for your research, right? Energy, they're saying we're going to tax you higher if you if you build factories that have this kind of energy, and we're going to tax you less if you create factories that are going to give you this kind of energy, right? Food, there's massive regulation on both agriculture and the restaurant industry, all kinds of regulation, and many times it's very responsive and very specific, right? So now, here's the problem. This is not consistent. The government gets its hands into virtually every industry, and it does not regulate the movie industry the way the movie industry needs to be regulated, right? Now, I believe the reason for this is that Hollywood is a major donor, and I think that politicians, by and large, have been leaving the movie industry alone as a thank you for the millions and millions of dollars of the millions and millions of dollars of donations that have been giving to them in virtually every cycle, right? And I think it's really unfair, and I don't like to see inconsistency. If you're going to regulate across the board. And I want these useful regulations that will actually help Americans. I'll tell you right now, I don't give two rat tails about raisins, but I do care about movies, and we're going to talk about some of the regulations we're going to need. I'll give you some examples of some really specific regulations we're going to need. You know what? I'll give you the specific regulations that we'll need, and then I'm going to button up and tell you exactly more reasons why this is the right choice. So let's knock them out. All right, so I have a mnemonic for this. Joker holding two lightsabers looking up at a red sun that is rising. All right, so number one, the government should regulate that Warner Brothers has to sell the rights to the DC characters for movie rights. And the reason why is the government regulates for safety, for health, right? So they're saying, hey, for food health, you need XYZ, right? Well, for mental health, Warner Brothers can no longer own the film rights to the DC characters. It has become upsetting for millions of Americans, right? At home, I have two books. I have the DK Guide to Marvel Heroes, and I have the DK Guide to DC Heroes, right? Each one of these books, it's a coffee table book. It's literally like 1.5 feet tall, about 1 foot wide. Each one of these books contains, the Marvel book contains 1,000 Marvel heroes. The DC book contains 1,000 DC heroes, right? Warner Brothers has done such a shockingly bad job with the DC heroes, right? Warner Brothers has been making DC movies, right, since 1989. They've only made $1 billion on one film, Aquaman. Now, you know there is something shockingly wrong when you have been given the Batman and Superman since 1989. That's 99, 2009, 19, right? So 1989, that is 30 years. 30 years, right? That they've had the right to make these movies. Never made a single $1 billion film with Superman and Batman, and even the fight between Superman and Batman could not make $1 billion. The Justice League first run could not make $1 billion, and Aquaman makes $1 billion. That is massive, absolutely massive bumbling of one of America's greatest resources. I'll tell you right now, right? Who cares about steel? Like, we put tariffs on steel. Who cares about steel in 2019? We can get steel from like 20 other countries on the planet, right? But we're regulating how much steel goes in and out of America through tariffs, right? But our greatest resource, Batman and Superman, are being massively mismanaged. My opinion, massively mismanaged, right? And the government sits by and does nothing, right? Under Andrew Yang, I would have him first go on year one, just go to the DC executives and say, listen, I want you to bring in help. right? I don't care who you do it from. I'm not going to take this away from you immediately. You have 2 years to make a decent DC film, right? And if you don't do it, I'm going to regulate through the government that you sell your rights to make these DC films, right? That's exactly what I want from Andrew Yang. Now I'll give you the next one, okay? Star Wars, right? The Star Wars relaunch from Disney has been upsetting to a lot of people, right? I was a huge fan, and I really tried to be supportive of what Disney was doing with the Star Wars films, right? But Solo was a nightmare. It was very, very bad. You will actually find on this channel, I did a review of before they released the trailer for Solo and said they should have shelved the movie. And I was right. They should have shelved that movie. It was one of the most catastrophic releases for Star Wars in the history of the entire films, right? And one of the things is you could tell that they're not executing correctly because they brought in J.J. Abrams. He said, I don't want to do this anymore. Rian Johnson came in. Rian Johnson's performance on Star Wars 8 was so bad that they went back and got J.J. Abrams and said, you need to button this up. We can't, we can't use our original plan, and you have to finish this, right? And he didn't want to, right? Now, the reality is, basically, I don't think that Star Wars 7 and 8 are bad. I like them, right? But the reality is they have sundered the community. There are a lot of people who are very upset about what has happened with Star Wars, right? So, again, I would have Andrew Yang simply go to Disney and say, listen, I, the U.S. president, am requesting that you give Star Wars a 5-year hiatus as soon as Star Wars 9 is over. No more movies. You can make your shows, you can make video games, whatever, but you need to make people want Star Wars again, right? Very responsive, very exact, very specific. And the reason why is Star Wars is a massive asset. It is tens of billions of dollars that are involved in Star Wars. This is a huge part of American industry. And it also controls our diplomacy to the world. Our entertainment is diplomacy to other cultures, right? So this is really important. And the last one is, I would have Andrew Yang go to MGM and say, MGM, you are required to make a third you are required to remake your 2012 Red Dawn film. It has to have, to honor the 1984 Red Dawn movie for the disservice you did in the 2012 Red Dawn film, you must reshoot, right? You must do a new Red Dawn film, right? You can use new actors, but it has to have the Russia invading America, not North Korea, which is utterly absurd. North Korea has no troop carriers. North Korea has no army capable of doing a boots-on-the-ground invasion of America. That movie was laughable. What was the point of it? It did a disservice to Patrick Swayze's Ghost. It did a disservice to America, and it even did a disservice to Russia, right? 1984 is an American classic. The 2012 Red Dawn is what, was mentally the 2012 Red Dawn compromised the mental health of the thousands of Americans who saw that film, right? And this needs to be set correct, right? So that's my point is, no one thinks twice when the government says, hey, you need to take tons and tons and tons of raisins and bury them in the ground, right? But we sit by and we watch the government do nothing, right? When a movie studio says, you know what would be a good idea? Let me make a movie about a cop who loses his partner again for the 100th time. The government needs to step in. There needs to be regulation, right? And that's my point is, we have regulation of industries. The government does not hesitate to regulate industries for health reasons. And under Andrew Yang, we could definitely be regulating for mental health, because many of the things that are being done by American studios are incredibly upsetting, right? And in addition to this, as soon as Andrew Yang gets involved personally and begins asking studios execs directly, right, saying, I want this change, I truly believe change will happen. And that would be a warning. And if the studios are not responsive, he can use the power of the government literally to fix these problems, right? And this is a huge problem. This recent success with Joker, Joker making $700-800 million, that is going to tank any possibility that the DC cinematic universe can be successful. It was a horrifically bad business decision to make Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. It was horrendous, right? Because the DC cinematic universe is not on its feet, and this is going to make it even harder for that to happen. That is going to be billions of dollars lost and incredible frustration for millions of Americans who go to see a movie that is going to be fun and winsome and realize that now that the parents have seen Joker and that what is being made under the DC cinematic universe has no connection to it whatsoever, right? It's going to compromise the mental health of Americans. Here's the last one. So one more reason why the government should absolutely do this. Here's why, all right? The government should have absolutely no hesitation of poking their nose into the movie industry, because the movie industry absolutely does not hesitate to poke its nose right into politics. They do it all the time. Directors, movie stars, unions, all of them. They constantly comment on American politics and say exactly the direction they want to go. So American politics needs to get right back in their face, right? I think there are some major problems in the U.S. Movie industry. There are massive, incredibly important American assets that have been, in my opinion, massively mismanaged. And the government should get involved, right? And I really don't, I don't want responsive, exact regulation to be limited to how many raisins are produced, right? Like, entertainment is the new steel. It is the new, real, mattering industry of this nation. And I want very responsive, very exact regulation. And I would like, and I'm setting this here now, so that when Andrew Yang is president, this will be here for his administration, saying Scott Garibay, at minimum, genuinely wishes there to be very exact, responsive regulation of the movie industry, and that the movie industry's very direct involvement in politics, its constant commentary on politics, its constant requests to politicians, that directional flow needs to go back and forth. Politicians need to be coming in and saying, this hugely important American asset has been mismanaged, right? And it really needs to be fixed, right? All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on the topic. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.